but they need to be Athena in disguise. During the 10-year war of Trojan, Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, left his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus under the guidance of a man, and his name was Mentor, whose job was to protect and guide him. Therefore, a mentor is a wise advisor, intimate friend, who is a sage counselor. Today we have with us Dr. Anil Kumar Srivastav, sir. Welcome, sir. We are highly delighted to have you with us. Sir will speak on the topic of role of a teacher as a mentor during COVID-19 pandemic. Sir hails from Varanasi. Sir has done his PhD in psychology from Awadh University, and adding to this, he is diploma in yoga and closely associated with the Institute of Business Science, BHU. Sir has been working as a freelance corporate psychologist trainer. Sir is a well-known motivational speaker and a leadership trainer. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Hello, good morning. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir. You can proceed.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible. You may proceed.
Respected Professor Alok Kumar Rai sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Lucknow, Professor Arvind Mohan sir, Dean Academics, University of Lucknow, Professor Ram Saran Gupta sir, Coordinator, Faculty of Engineering and Technology, University of Lucknow, distinguished speakers of the webinar, Dr. V.V. Krishna Rao sir, Dr. Vinod Mishra sir, Professor V.P. Singh sir, Professor L.V. Singh Rathod sir, members of the organizing team, learned faculty members of Lucknow and other places, and the students of the university. A very warm good morning to you all. I am thankful to the authorities of University of Lucknow to provide me with an opportunity to participate in the webinar on the topic Role of Teacher as a Mentor during COVID-19 pandemic. A very relevant and burning topic in the present scenario. I will begin with the differences in the meaning of words teacher and mentor. Teacher, especially in an academic setup, is a person with assigned targets, a specified syllabus, and fixed time schedule for his teachings. The concept of the mentor is not very different, but goes much beyond it. It is all about a guidance relationship between a mentor and a mentee, and is more specific, intense, and is strive for a target with an unlimited level of excellence. For example, there is some problem in the connectivity. For example, so we can connect me. The concept of the mentor is not very different, but goes much beyond it. It is all about a guidance relationship between a mentor and a mentee, and is more specific. यहाँ तो कट गया। यहाँ देखो थोड़ा। Is there is some technical problem in my system? I'm fixing that. Okay. नहीं और the concept of the mentor is not very different but goes much beyond it. It is all about a guidance relationship between a mentor and a mentee and is more specific, intense, and strive for a target with an unlimited level of excellence. For example, a professor teaching in an undergraduate or a postgraduate class is a teacher with specified targets of syllabus and examination performance. But when guiding some PhD students, relationship goes beyond this. Now this is a level when academic fraternity will recognize the mentee with the name of a mentor or vice versa. A mentor may also be known as a mentor of a highly accomplished mentee. For example, Ramakant Acharekar, the cricket coach, may be recognized as the mentor of Sachin Tendulkar. Teaching is about knowledge and mentoring is about the experience. In the traditional sense, teaching involves formal lessons on a subject, often including a detailed lesson plan and methods of assessment. Mentoring, on the other hand, is more informal and relational in nature. A mentor acts as an advisor, sharing knowledge based on their lived experience. There is more sharing between the two as mentors strive to help their mentees grow into peers. A teacher focuses on the how and a mentor adds why to the matter being learned in order to make it more useful and relevant for the mentee. A mentor focuses more on applying knowledge into practice. Mentors impart their wisdom, practical insight, and creativity to encourage learners, mentees, to express and develop their own skills. I can give you an example of famous cine director Raj Kapoor about his mentoring process as a pioneer director in the cinema. When he expressed his desire to his father Prithviraj Kapoor to become a director in the cine industry, he was employed in Prithvi Theatre on a very lower post. Then after some time he was sent to another director, Kedar Sharma, where he started his career as a fourth assistant. You'll be surprised to know that a fourth assistant means a post just above the levers on the set. He was not mentored by videos, lectures, or teachings directly. He learned from the experience, gradually upgrading at different levels. That is why he is Raj. Similarly, Bimal Rai has mentored many directors in the industry like Rishikesh Mukherjee, Gulzar, and V.R. Desara, etc., where mentoring was provided through experience, not through lectures and videos. However, these two categories are not exactly distinct. Teachers can be mentors and mentors can be teachers. Both have an important and necessary place in education. A teacher's first priority may be instruction, but they can be creative and interactive in their approach. They recognize and foster individuality, creativity, and become mentors in their own right. And while a mentor's priority is on personal development, the mentee must possess know-how skills. And so mentoring will always have an instructional component. Now let us take a short review of the qualities as a good mentor. A good mentor must have the willingness to share his skills, knowledge, and expertise. Some people in maintain his prominence and maintain his uniqueness keep something with them, especially in the field of creative arts. A good mentor demonstrates a positive attitude and acts as a positive role model. He exhibits the personal attributes it takes to be successful in the field by showing the mentee that it takes to be productive and successful. He takes a personal interest in the mentoring relationship. They feel themselves invested in the success of the mentee. Overall, good mentoring requires empowering the mentee to develop their own strengths, beliefs, and personal attributes. He exhibits enthusiasm in the field. Mentors should be in a position to illustrate how the field is growing and changing, and that even after many years, there are still new things to learn. Anyone that feels stagnant in their current position will not make a good mentor. Good mentors are committed and are open to experimenting and learning practices that are new to the field. They continually read professional journals and may even write articles on subjects where they have developed some expertise. They are excited to share their knowledge with new people entering the field and take the role seriously in teaching their knowledge to others. They may choose to teach or attend classes to further develop their knowledge and skills. They enjoy taking workshops and attending professional conferences provided through their membership in professional associations. One of the key responsibilities of a good mentor is to provide guidance and constructive feedback to their mentee. This is where the mentee will most likely grow the most by identifying their current strengths and weaknesses and learning how to use these to make themselves successful in the field. A good mentor possesses excellent communication skills and should be able to adjust their communication to the personality style of the mentee. A good mentor will also provide the mentee with challenges that will foster professional development and a feeling of accomplishment in learning the field. He sets and meets ongoing personal and professional goals. A mentor who values others is also someone who works well in a team environment and is willing to share his success. A good mentor appreciates the ongoing effort of the mentee and empowers him through positive feedback and reinforcement. He motivates others by setting a good example. Further, needless to say that the mentor-mentee relationship is a two-way phenomenon, as both should have the zeal and the enthusiasm and same willingness to get the desired targets, or it is better to say, to enlist themselves for excellence in the field. Now the responsibility and relationship of mentor and mentee have been explained to a good length. Let us see what is COVID-19 and what constraints have been imposed this pandemic on it. COVID-19 is a disease caused by a new strain of coronavirus. CO stands for corona, VI for virus, and D for the disease. COVID-19 virus is a new virus linked to the same family of viruses as SARS, that is severe acute respiratory syndrome, and some types of a common cold. Symptoms can include fever, cough, and shortness of breath. In more severe cases, the infection can cause pneumonia or breathing difficulties. More rarely, the disease can be fatal. These symptoms are similar to the flu, influenza, or the common cold, which, is, which are a lot more common in the COVID-19. That is why testing is required to confirm if someone has COVID-19. The virus is transmitted through direct contact and respiratory droplets of an infected person generated through coughing and sneezing. Individuals can also be infected from the touching surfaces contaminated with the virus and touching their face, example eyes, nose, mouth. The COVID-19 virus may survive on surfaces for several hours, but simple disinfectants can kill it. We are learning more about how COVID-19 affects people every day. Older people and people with chronic medical conditions such as diabetes and heart disease appear to be more at risk of developing severe symptoms. As this is a new virus, we are still learning about how it affects children, teenagers, or youngsters. We know it is possible for people of any age to be infected with the virus, but so far there are relatively few cases of COVID-19 reported among children. There is no currently available vaccine for COVID-19. However, many of the symptoms can be treated, and getting early care for the healthcare provider can make the disease less dangerous. There are several clinical trials that are being conducted to evaluate potential therapeutics for COVID-19. How can the spread of COVID-19 be slowed down or prevented? As with other respiratory infections like the flu or the common cold, public health measures are critical to slow the spread of illness. This pandemic has made several direct and indirect effects on the traditional education system. First of all, to achieve something, mentor and mentee both should be in a sound, healthy psychological setup. Suppose both are okay, but some important family member of them is in trouble due to this pandemic, they cannot give proper attention to their specific tasks. Much negativity has been created by some biased TV channels by sensationally telecasting the news, obviously for their competitions in TR. No doubt the situation is very serious in nature, but sensationalizing the same does not serve any purpose. All channels, media house, and government machinery are talking about physical health only, probably because the resources and imaginations are totally occupied with it. No one is showing their concerns for the mental or psychological health of the people, which has been badly threatened by the unrest and anxieties created during the pandemic. Obviously, the priorities of the people are first to save their lives, then comes economic and commercial angles for running their families, and only some of us can think about the importance of mental health, which is a prima facie requirement for important a good education. Now, an additional job has been added to the teacher mentors to keep their mentees in a good psychological mental condition by removing the negativity came in their minds because of the uncertainties created by the pandemic. Without a sound, healthy mind, nothing can be achieved. Now I will discuss the recommendations given by UNESCO in this regard. UNESCO makes 10 recommendations. First, examine the readiness and choose the most relevant tools. Decide on the use of high technology and low technology solutions based on the reliability of local power supplies, internet connectivity, and digital skills of teachers and students. This could range through integrated digital learning platforms, video lessons to broadcasting through radios and TV. Ensure inclusion of the distance learning programs. Second, ensure inclusion of the distance learning programs. Implement measures to ensure that the students, including those with disabilities or from low-income backgrounds, have access to distance learning programs. If only a limited number of them have access to digital devices, consider temporarily decentralizing such devices from computer labs to families and support them with internet connectivity. Third, protect data privacy and data security. Assess data security when uploading data or educational resources to web spaces, as well as when sharing them with other organizations or individuals. Ensure that the use of applications and platforms does not violate a student's data privacy. These are the recommendations of UNESCO. Fourth, prioritize solutions to address psychosocial challenges before teaching. Mobile available tools to connect schools, parents, teachers, and students with each other. Create communities to ensure regular human interactions, enable social caring measures, and address possible psychosocial challenges that students may face when they are isolated. Fifth, plan the study schedule of the distance learning programs. Organize discussions with the stakeholders to examine the possible duration of school closures and decide whether the distance learning programs should focus on teaching new knowledge or enhance students' knowledge of prior lessons. Plan the schedule depending on the situation of affected zones, level of studies, needs of student needs, and availability of parental support. Choose the appropriate learning methodologies based on the status of school closure and home-based quarantine. Avoid learning methodology that requires face-to-face communication. Sixth, provide support to teachers and parents on the use of digital tools. Organize brief training or orientation sessions for teachers and parents as well if monitoring and facilitation are needed. Help teachers to prepare the basic settings such as solutions to the use of internet data if they are required to provide live streaming of lessons. Seventh, blend appropriate approaches and limit the number of applications and platforms. Blend tools are media that are available for most students, both for synchronous communication and lessons and for asynchronous learning. Avoid overloading students and parents by asking them to download and test too many applications or platforms. Here, develop distance learning rules and monitor the students' learning process. Define the rules with parents and the students on distance learning. Design formative questions, tests, or exercises to monitor closely students' learning process. Try to use tools to support submission of the students' feedback and avoid overloading parents by requesting them to scan and sign the students' feedback. 9. Define the duration of the distance learning units based on the student's self-regulation skills. Keep a coherent timing according to the level of the student. Self-regulation and metacognitive abilities, especially for live streaming classes. Preferably, the unit for primary school students should not be more than 20 minutes and no longer than 40 minutes for secondary school students. 10th and the last one is create communities and enhance connection. Create communities of teachers, parents, and school managers to address the sense of loneliness or helplessness. Facilitate sharing of experience and discussion on coping strategies when facing learning difficulties. It is clear that proper facilities of imparting education through such advanced techniques are very limited. Only big universities and academic institutions are equipped with the proper technical infrastructure to provide such distant web-dependent services at the present. Moreover, in such advanced institutes also, a large number of staff, especially older ones, are reluctant to learn these recent facilities. I understand that in a number of degree colleges, especially in the rural and semi-urban sectors of our country, basic infrastructure is not available. A lot has to be done to make people web literate if we think for such an education system can be generalized at the country level. Further, even if the infrastructure and the skilled staff are available, connectivity as well as power issues are always there. Then, what can be done by the mentors in the present situations? Obviously, as per the perceived recession in the economy, the situation in the remote areas of the country is not going to be improved in the recent future. We will only have to utilize the present resources at the optimum level. Training must be organized in different academic setups for the staff and the students through the comparatively easier and popular known setups, for example, WhatsApp groups. Further, there are some other popular and widespread technological facilities available in the country. For example, educational contents can also be made available on radio and television, and their proper schedule must be published in advance through the newspapers, WhatsApp messages, etc., so that all needy students could get that. One most important point is that the nature of the subject plays the most important role in order to decide its fitness on such distance learning modes. For example, literature or language subjects can easily be taught through these distant modes. But what about the subjects containing a lot of practical experiments? For example, A surgery student can watch the video of operation, but can he learn it by simply watching this? Or can a cricket coach can mentor a player by such distant modes? But point is that this pandemic has limited our options badly. The greatest challenge to a mentor is how does it bridge the gap and maintain the level of academic guidance as far as possible. Certain possible suggestions can be given now. A mentor must have a WhatsApp group of all his students so that he may get feedback or questions from them on the topics and must actively post the clarifications there so that all member students of the group may simultaneously get the clarification. This will save the time of the mentor in dealing with a large number of students. Further, as in academic setups, we are habitual of certain protocols like proper uniform and discipline. Now, under COVID-19 circumstances, we will have to work from homes. At this time of increased video chatting, let your training come as they are. Professionalism is unwarranted during this time of social distancing. There might also be others in their homes. Acknowledge this so that a trainee does not feel awkward if a child or pet bursts into the room or interrupts your chat. Let them know you expect the possibility of there being other people and noises in the background. That is, this is okay, and that you might have the same disruption at your end also. Some people might feel that during this time of working from home, they can learn a new computer language, write a complete manuscript from scratch, or develop a new way to analyze data. That's great. But learning new skills should be a bonus, not an expectation during a stressful period. Perhaps suggest some non-lab activities your trainee could consider that would help their overall productivity, but that would not feel all-consuming. These could include conducting a literature review, working on outlines, and a background section for a manuscript. Reading the articles saved for when we have time. Preparing research summaries, practicing talks, prepare fellowship applications, and analyze data. Focus on smaller, more manageable tasks. As in all mentoring relationships, and especially during this time of heightened stress, it is not mentor's role to fix a trainee's problem. Instead, acknowledge the full range of their emotions. Let them know what they are feeling is natural and acceptable. Start small and lower expectations for yourself and your trainees. COVID-19 is taking an emotional toll on everyone and might cause us to transfer our stress onto others, often in the form of poor communication and emotional reactions. Do not demand heightened productivity from yourself or from your trainees. Expecting manuscript masterpieces or flawless grant applications to be written during this time of unprecedented stress is a tall order. Instead, offer the chance to help on one of your manuscripts. Break things down into small pieces. This is a great time to collaborate. Most importantly, remember the human and empathetic part of the mentoring relationship. Focus on what is important to the trainee at this time. Consider their safety, specifically their physical, emotional, and psychological state, and prioritize helping them to improve that in your role as a mentor. This is a time to review the goals and expectations you established with your students under normal conditions before the onset of the pandemic. Identify which of these goals and expectations are important to maintain and which may need to be reprioritized and redefined. Consider how new constraints like available time, remote work, new stressors, etc., may factor into how mutually understood expectations can be met, how individual and shared goals can be achieved, and within what time. Many students whose work depends heavily on being in the field. Lab, many students whose work depends heavily on being in the field, lab, or other external environments are concerned about how this time working remotely will impact their continued progress. Students closer to degree completion are concerned about a rapidly changing job market both within and beyond academia. Do what you can to ease their concerns, but also work with them on realistic action plans, including pointing them towards resources and support offered by the government or other institutes. And mentor must also be aware of recent facilities provided by the government or private organizations. Looking at this challenge of the colleges and the schools being set, the Government of India as well as the state governments and private players have regularly been publishing information on various initiatives undertaken by ministries like MHRD, Department of Technical Education, NCERT, and others to support and benefit students. A few of the initiatives taken so far are as under. Swayam online courses for teachers, undergraduate, PG, postgraduate, massive open online course, shortly known as MOOCs, MOOCs, e-postgraduate Pathshala or e-content containing modules on social sciences, arts, fine art, natural and mathematical sciences. CEC UGC YouTube channel. Next, Vidwan, a database of experts who provide information to peers and prospective collaborators. NEAT NEET, an initiative by AICTE based on PPP model to enhance the employability skill among students in collaboration with education technology companies. National Digital Library, NDL, a repository of learning resources with a single window facility. Many noteworthy initiatives have been taken up like Spoken Tutorial, free or open source software for education, eYantra, Google Classroom, and so on. Government of India as well as state governments through their various ministry departments have created the infrastructure to deliver e-education. These include National Knowledge Network, NKN, National Project on Technology Enhanced Learning, NPTEL. Third, National Mission on Education through Information and Communication Technology, NMEICT. Fourth, National Academic Depository, among others. All these enhances our ability to connect easily with institutions and enhance our access to learning resources. For instance, NKN provides high-speed network backbone to educational institutes in India. By looking on these, we find that system was already trying to be digital for quite some time. But as the traditional methods were most popular, the speed of accessibility of these was much slower. Now the COVID-19 pandemic has allowed us to accelerate such facilities in regular use. Digital learning technologies have many other benefits in terms of commercial value. Teaching of specific expert personalities from all over the globe can be made available, even to the remote, lesser developed areas, comparatively at low cost. Sooner or later, the pandemic will be controlled, but it will be remembered for accelerating the use of digital learning platforms. I hope academic persons will continue using much of these facilities even after the traditional methods are invoked. My sincere thanks to all of you for careful listening. Good day to you all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Your words have incredible power. Thank you so much for sharing this knowledge. You have portrayed both the biological and the sociological aspects of COVID-19 pandemic. The term has found its relevant mentorship when COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the education of more than 850 million students worldwide.